What is going on, Jet fans? Matt O'Leary back with another video. Today I'm going to get into a surprise New York Jets youngster who was listed as a breakout candidate. This was a little bit surprising to see this player listed as someone who could potentially take a big step forward in year two. Spoiler, it was someone who was a rookie last year. I'm rooting for this guy to take a year two leap. I want every single player on the Jets roster to become the Jets' best version of themselves. I just didn't think this would be a name that I'd be reading about today. So let's get into it. Rich Cimini of ESPN put out an article talking about the youth on the New York Jets roster, and someone he mentioned by name that the Jets were impressed with or have been impressed with so far in the offseason is Jason Brownlee. Here's the direct quote. One player who has impressed is wide receiver Jason Brownlee, who was featured in Hard Knocks last summer and made the team as an undrafted rookie. He could be a surprise in the Jets receiving corps. I thought he was really good in training camp last year. What made him really impressive was his acrobatic catches. He did it with the ones, twos, threes. He kind of moved all around the lineup, which really isn't surprising for someone who is trying to make the roster. I mean, some of his plays are going to come against guys who are number two and number threes, but he also got a little bit of a run with the starters, and I thought was okay. Unfortunately, in the preseason, I don't think he had the best of showings. I thought Xavier Gipson looked better in the preseason. In the regular season, Gipson had the big moment as a returner in the first game of the year, was okay as a pass catcher the rest of the way, and for Jason Brownlee was kind of used sporadically in 7 games. He caught just 5 passes for 56 yards, but he did have a receiving touchdown. He's now in year 2 and 25 years old heading into his second season with the Jets. 6'2", 198-pound outside receiver who the Jets found as a UDFA out of Southern Miss, and maybe this is where Jason Brownlee could set himself apart from someone like Xavier Gipson on the roster. I put those two guys in a very similar boat heading into this year, but their roles are very different. Gipson projects as someone who, with his size, is going to be a slot receiver, where Brownlee is more of an outside receiver, and with the Jets' current situation at outside wide receiver, I think there's more of a path for Brownlee than there is Gipson. Allow me to explain. So ahead of guys like Xavier Gipson on the roster, you already have Malachi Corley, who projects as a slot-only kind of player. And then you have Garrett Wilson, who is also a guy that the Jets like to use a lot coming out of the slot. And granted, Garrett can play on the outside. You line him up all over the field, but we did see the Jets like to put a lot of Garrett Wilson in the slot, so I wouldn't be surprised if that's something that continues. But if that's the case, then are you good with Mike Williams and Allen Lazard? So for my path to success for a guy like Jason Brownlee, I don't want this to happen because this is not good for the Jets overall. But if Mike Williams is slow out of the gate due to the ACL, then maybe his role will be a little bit more expanded. Mike Williams tore it at the end of, I believe it was week 3 last year. So it was early on in the year, thankfully. But as we saw last season with Breece Hall, yes, he popped off a couple nice big runs in the first game against Buffalo, but he really didn't hit his stride until the second half of the season. So Mike Williams might be a little bit slower out of the gate. Then you have Allen Lazard, who, let's be honest, was a massive disappointment in 2023. I was excited about adding Allen Lazard because he had that rapport with Aaron Rodgers. He, for the most part in his career, was a really excellent run-blocking wide receiver, red zone, big body threat, and he was, again, a unfortunate, massive disappointment in his first year with the Jets. Maybe he bounces back, but what if this is the new norm for Allen Lazard, and he's someone who, the Jets healthy scratched at the end of the last year. Maybe they don't feel all that great about Allen Lazard, even with the return of Aaron Rodgers. So that would be a factor that goes into it. And then finally, you have Malachi Corley, who, the Jets really like, and they traded up for him. So this one's maybe not as likely, but he is still a late second or top of the third round, technically, but top of the third round wide receiver. Maybe he's not ready out of the jump. I hope he is, because, again, I think he is incredibly explosive, going to be a fun, dynamic player with the ball in his hands. But I don't know, if some things don't really break right for some of the guys in front of him, can Jason Brownlee get on the field? Maybe. Yeah, I could see the thought process behind it, but I still think it's going to be a challenge for him to be that breakout caliber player on this Jets team. I like Brownlee. I don't want this to be an anti-Jason Brownlee video, because I don't believe it is, but I just don't know if he's going to get enough run to where he's looked at as oh, wow, Jason Brownlee had a really good year too. I don't think he's going to be a huge factor on this team just because of the number of guys in front of him. But who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. I want to hear from you guys. What do you think about Jason Brownlee going into his second season? Do you see a breakout in 2024? I'm Matt O'Leary. Subscribe if you're new. I'll catch you guys next time.